Hey, a little video out there. I've been trying to redo a couple on the Ferguson, Missouri thing, but I will explain how our perspective works here in Portland, Oregon. Portland's not that bad of a city. It was a really great city in the early 2000s. When I first discovered Portland, I was like, wow, why was I not here 10 years ago? Portland was a city in 2001 when I first came here where people could they could live very sustainably on minimum wage. You know, they could make $10 an hour, live in a $250 apartment. $500 apartment got you, like, you know, kind of a neat little high-rise type thing downtown, like a restored high-rise type thing. Not super posh, but, you know, a real apartment downtown was $500 a month. Now a lot of that's much more expensive. And that $500 a month was a place without parking, but you get street parking in $250 to $300 range. By 2008, the greed of the real estate interests had outpaced the generosity of the employers. So what happened was, when the expected wages kind of got from $10 an hour to $15 an hour, the apartment rentals kind of got into the $6 to $8, and a lot of $850 stuff. Room share stuff, a little cheaper, but it still varies. It kind of depends on what you're willing to put up with in the neighborhood. I'm probably going to be moving soon, and I'm going to be looking for probably a share rental. I can't really afford my own separate apartment, and I need space for the workshop projects, stuff like that. So I'm going to be looking at non-conventional type stuff, probably in one of the industrial districts. And then the racial atmosphere here is pretty easygoing. We just don't have the racial problems that they have in California or Seattle. Corruption here, obviously it happens. It's nowhere on a scale that you expect to see in Seattle or California, Washington State or California. Now, Washington State is basically, you know, 3 or 4 different states rolled up into one. You got Seattle, Seattle-Tacoma area, which is really one area. Then you got Yakima, which is really just almost like a different country from that. And then you got that strip in between. And there's some differences between northern and southern Washington to a degree. But they basically talk about the wet side, the dry side. And Washington is a state where you got to watch your back. You really got to watch your back with those people, because if they're vengeful, they're vindictive. If they have power, they're going to use it. You really got to watch your back with those people. Oregon in general is generally so lax and so low crime and so casual that you can get kind of lackadaisical on issues of personal security because it's just not hardcore. Except for little criminal pockets directly outside of Portland, but it kind of East Portland. There's an area, basically far East Portland and Gresham, which is like an ongoing game of cops and robbers. Just 24/7, it's a game of cops and robbers. But it's kind of lightweight compared to California. I mean, we're just talking about they chase each other around and a lot of petty stuff. A lot of car theft, a lot of petty stuff, a lot of petty drug stuff. But it's not super heavy duty. It's just, you know, some petty criminal wants to get some street rep stuff, you might have a problem. And it's the type of place where I won't even, you know, I wouldn't live there just because I do leave, you know, I sometimes leave valuables in my truck, you know, like tools and stuff like that. So, you know, I usually solve that problem by living in a better neighborhood. My mom taught me that lesson. You know, if you live in a better neighborhood, you just don't deal with all that cops and robbers type stuff that tends to be going on in other neighborhoods. And what's interesting about Portland is that the prices and the rules, like the rules in the apartment building, a lot of times isn't really related to the crime rate. It's just related to the prices and the rules. And so if you shop, it pays to shop around here. It's a no sales tax state. Employment can be a little tricky, but it's there. I mean, if you really want to work, if you really want to make a living and you're ambitious to make a living, it can be done here. It could definitely be done here. I think that when somebody here is just chronically and constantly unemployed or constantly complaining about this or that job every single time, then it may be them. Okay, I'm just saying it. There are people that just get labeled as a victim, so you get a couple of bad references from somebody, and then they'll never live it down. I have maybe, I don't know. I mean, there were people that would try that with me, but it's just not, it doesn't stick, because once you get a reputation, you get a reputation. And if you got somebody who says bad things about you, then you can live it down. If you're willing to work, you get good things done for people. It's good. You know, the good outweighs the bad. That's if you're getting things done for people. Okay, you don't necessarily have to be on a warpath. For one guy against another, that sort of thing. When I lived in California, I was in the car business for a while. Some former employers I got along with, others I didn't. They kind of took advantage when I was new in the business. And when I went to get into the business here in Oregon, I was like, "Listen, man, not my first, not my first place on this. So, it's not gonna, hey, don't bullshit me." And for the most part, they didn't. But it's kind of a little bit more scrabbly business here because of there's more sales going on. There's not any sort of a licensing for the salesman, and so you're really replaceable here. Where in California, there's car dealer licensing. Even a salesman has to have a license, kind of like a real estate license. So you're not as easily replaced there. When I moved to Oregon, things are definitely more affordable than they are now. It's just not become terribly inaffordable, but it's definitely less affordable than it was before. And that means that people who want to be creative, who want to do things which maybe aren't as financially rewarding, have to look for alternative arrangements. You have to look for alternative arrangements. Mobile living is one of them. The other is some of the small town areas where the economic recovery hasn't gotten to those small towns. They went downhill when the logging went out, when the logging shrank, and it's not so much a regulatory issue that hurt logging in a lot of places. It's just that human beings are capable of organizing to cut trees faster than trees grow. And when the logging boom was over, then it was over. But there was a time I'm told about in the 70s which came to an abrupt end at a certain point in the early 80s, where there were guys who would drop out of high school, go work logging, marry the high school sweetheart, buy a house, own a truck, all this type of stuff, and they expected that. They expected to be able to drop out of high school, go work in a logging industry, make a good living, and own a house. That expectation lasted for a very long time, where people didn't realize that it's not normal for high school dropouts to be able to just afford all the normal things in life. And in California, there was a lot of college graduates like myself who couldn't necessarily afford all the normal things in life. Here in Oregon, I can kind of have some things without having to work too incredibly hard for it. And so that's what I'm saying about Portland. It's not a horrible, bad, unwelcoming city, as long as you're willing to get along with people. You're willing to work. If the things don't fit at one place, you can get with another place. It tends to be that a lot of people aren't even checking references on stuff all that much. If you have demonstrated job skills, that's what tends to matter. Okay, the corporate employers, a lot of them don't pay so much better than you can get cash on the street or hustling Craigslist or something like that, doing legitimate work. That the big corporate employers just aren't that competitive compared to that. Everybody kind of knows what something ought to be worth. And so it's not like any single entity controls the entire game. Now, when you get into professional level employment, that's a different situation. That's where the local university system kind of has a stranglehold on the local professional level stuff. And that's where outsiders can have a problem. For example, teaching credentials. If you have an out-of-state teaching credential, they won't honor it here. The out-of-state bar association or legal credentials, they don't want to honor them here. A lot of out-of-state professional stuff, they don't really want to honor it. I even had an issue transferring into the National Guard. I had college degrees. I was eligible for OCS. They wouldn't even honor that to the level just to get me to the next step in the NCO schools series stuff. And it wasn't okay, we'll straighten it out. It's out of the question, and we're going to treat you like your degree is a fraudulent degree, and that's that. Too bad you didn't get it at one of our universities. That's that. I had a second lieutenant in the unit who had gotten his OCS through another place. The thing is, he was 40 years old. He was a E6 before he got his commission, and he had a master's degree. And it was years before they gave him his first lieutenant. When the guy was, he had more education, more background than most of the captains. And we're talking a 40-year-old who had made E6 before he got commissioned. So, and their problem was that his degree wasn't local enough, And I think his BA degree was local and his master's wasn't, or his master's was from another state and his BA was local. So I forget how that went. But, yeah, at the professional level, they really want to see locally sourced degrees. But there's a lot of schools and colleges here. I haven't taken any classes at them, but I've actually done maintenance at some of the facilities, and they seem like they got their act together. They seem like they know what they're talking about. The problem is it's kind of a closed circuit, and they not necessarily have they don't identify with perspectives other than their own very well, especially in legal stuff. In legal stuff, it's all kind of incestuous. Teaching, kind of that way. It's kind of incestuous. Engineering and stuff like that, they're going to be a little bit Eurocentric. People understand engineering doesn't really respect borders the same way. The styling and design type stuff, they'll source that from different people. Technical abilities, they'll kind of source that. And that's something where if you come to the state and you have actual technical skills and abilities, you can find a place here. The trick is developing technical skills and abilities and proving that you have them, because they are going to make you prove it. Whatever you got on paper doesn't really matter to these people. Like with welding, you have to be able to go, you take the tests here, and you prove to the people here. But if you show up with a certificate, it doesn't matter. Same car mechanics, ASE certification from out of state, so-so. If you prove to the people here that you know what you're doing, then you can write your own ticket. But anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about Portland, but I don't think it's a horrible city. Some people are saying it is. I don't think it is. I think it's a city in the economic recovery right now. Got a few speed bumps going on, but it's not a terrible place.